Hi, it's the Lipstick Gal. Thank you so much for watching today. I wanted to go through and give you a ranking of all the eyeshadow that came into my life for 2020. I know I've already done like my favorite makeup items of 2020, and I will have that video linked for you in the description bar below. But I thought, because I'd done some things differently this year than normal, that it would be interesting to go through and rank everything that I got new for the eyes. All right, so 2020 was one of those years where I told myself, you can't just keep buying willy-nilly. You can't just impulse buy like you normally do. You need to make a plan. You need to read reviews. You need to limit the amount of makeup you purchase because stuff was just stacking up, piling. And I have an enormous box of decluttered makeup that right now, because I'm not able to give stuff to friends and family, it's just sitting here. And it's a shame, and I don't use it, and it's a waste. So I told myself at the beginning of this year that I was not going to just buy everything that tickled my fancy. I would have to think about it. It would go on a list. I'd have to really be specific and then decide, and I would limit myself to one palette a month. Now, there were some months that I didn't buy a palette, and I told myself on those months that I didn't buy a palette, I couldn't go back and go, well, I missed last month, so I'm going to buy two this month. I didn't do that. I didn't allow myself to do that, but there were some months that I bought more than one palette. All right, let's get into it. I have 20 eyeshadow items here for you. Some of these came to me in a BoxyCharm, and because I do pay for the BoxyCharm, I did feel like I bought it, but I didn't choose it. All right, so this is number 20. This is the Tarte Pro. This is like the original one. I didn't like the formula as much as I thought I would. The mattes were okay. I feel like they blended okay, but I have better mattes. I also have better metallics. Is it bad? No. If you have it, would you use it? Yes. I feel like it's very much a very basic eyeshadow palette. Now, there's nothing wrong with basic because your girl loves a basic nude eyeshadow and I wear it all the time. But these didn't excite me. And I did notice that while looking in here, there are so many pans that you can tell a brush or a finger has never been in. So this is like the least used out of everything. Number 19 also comes from my BoxyCharm subscription, which by the way, I canceled this year. I just realized I wasn't using it, I wasn't enjoying it, and it was $25 a month, and why do that if you don't love it? My hair's getting a little crazy. It's a bad hair day for me. So this is from Beauty Creations. This is their Cali Chic palette. So I did like this. This kind of reminds me of your really basic warm neutrals. It has some mattes in here. It has kind of like a couple of satiny shades, and then the metallics in that middle row are really lovely. Are they my favorite? No. I did use this palette when I got it. I thought it was really nice, but I didn't use it a lot this year. And I think a lot of that is see how warm it leans? It's very orange and terracotta. And if we're doing a warm neutral, I can use those colors. They're just not my favorites. So that's why this is number 19. Number 18, I discovered a drugstore gem, and you've heard everyone talking about these e.l.f. bite-sized eyeshadows. This is the shade Hot Jalapeno. So out of all of these, I feel like I like the greens better, and I use these three here regularly when I'm doing a look. When I use that gold, because it is so bold, and I end up usually putting it in my inner corner, it looks, it's not my favorite eye look. So I will use 3 out of the 4 of these. I love how tiny these are. I really have been favoring smaller palettes from the last 12 to 18 months. I really have been leaving my larger palettes kind of someplace where like they collect dust, and it's these little guys that I reach for on the regular. And out of all the e.l.f. palettes I have, this is the one that I used the least this year, and that's mainly because I'm not always in a mood for a green eye. Number 17 is, and this one's kind of maybe almost cheating. Let me explain it. It's the Colourpop Bare Necessities palette. This is, was this their second really large 30 pan palette? It might have been. I bought this on Black Friday last year, 2019. But because shipping took forever, it didn't arrive until like just a few days before Christmas. And I don't think I really stuck my brush into it and started using it until either late December, early January of this year. So I kind of feel like this was a 2020, it wasn't a 2020 purchase, but I really started using it a lot more in 2020. Now, I do enjoy it. I don't enjoy it as much as I think I could because it's so big. I would like a more edited version of this. Maybe instead of doing 30 shades, maybe doing 16 shades. I know they have some 16 shade palettes, and I think that would be, because I do prefer a smaller palette, this gets a little unwieldy, and I'm one of those, I see all the colors, I want to use all the colors. And then my eye looks get really muddy. So I do like this palette, and I do feel like Colourpop has a good formula. Is it the best? No. Is it worth the price? Definitely. At number 16 comes this guy from Iconic London. This is their Day to Slay. This came in I think a boxy luxe, and my mirror broke. I really enjoyed this palette. I got it, I think mid to late spring, and I used it a lot. I really think it's beautiful. I remember hearing that there was some question over whether the formulation for what they gave to subscription boxes in their Day to Slay palette was different than what they were selling in stores. I liked it, and this is weird because I mentioned before in the beauty creations I didn't like it because it was a little too terracotta-y. I like this because it was more peachy and it didn't get too deep in the warms, and you did have like some of these more like plummy shades, more chocolate tones, and it wasn't quite so orangey orange. And I don't mind a peach. I prefer a peach if we're going kind of a warm neutral. It's just the really heavy terracottas that I don't like. But I really liked this palette, and I used it quite a lot. And then about April, early May, I just kind of quit wearing eyeshadow altogether, unless I was filming. And so I used it a lot, and then I didn't use it a lot. I have 3 of these this year. At number 15 is the Rose Water from Bite. I really like these, and I particularly like the metallics in here. I'm just gonna get these. I mean, they're really pretty for $3. And this is one of those products that I don't feel is just good for $3. It's just good. I feel like all of the bite-sized shadows that I've tried this year from e.l.f., I haven't tried all of them. I've only tried 3. I do feel like this was the first one that I got, and this is the one that made me believe that a $3 quad from the drugstore could actually be really good. And I got this, I think, early spring, and I liked it a lot, and it made me purchase 2 more in September when I wanted to do a full face of e.l.f. products and try a few more things. But this was kind of like the, oh yes, there is good stuff at the drugstore. In January, my Beautylish Lucky Bag arrived, and I got the Lucky Bag XL. It was the first year I've done that. I was so delighted. And the palette that came was from Viseart. This is their Grande Pro Volume 3. And the reason this is down there so low is not because I don't like the quality, not because the palette itself isn't good. It's just that it's a rainbow palette, and these shades intimidated like the pants off of me. These scared me so bad when I saw it. I was like, how am I supposed to use that? I was this close to like selling it untouched. There are a lot of shades in this palette that I never actually got around to using. So like these reds and greens right here, those have never been touched. I don't think I've dipped into this bright blue, this bright orange, or this yellow, but I've used everything else. Here's what I like. If you look at it, this bottom row here is really a light wash of shades, which worked really well for me. This top row here has those really intense, deep kind of depth building outer corner. Like you could do a beautiful halo eye, inner and outer corner with this, just to really give some nice depth. I thought this was beautiful. I use this a lot in companion with some of my favorite metallics or pressed pigments, and I loved it. I also started doing something in the spring. I started using like these 2 guys here, some of these blues up through here, some of these greens right in through here, these more kind of peachy yellowy tones to do kind of like a pastel eye. And I loved it for spring and early summer. And then when the pandemic hit in March, I still was wearing makeup through all of March, and then April, and I realized we're gonna be here for a hot minute. And then by May, I got into funk. I just didn't wear any more eyeshadow. So this kind of fell to the back of my makeup collection. And sadly, because it is a larger palette and I was kind of craving smaller, more compact, all-in-one, I didn't use this as much the last half of the year. Now, normally it runs for us $175, and I would never feel comfortable paying that for any eyeshadow palette, much less one of these guys. But the quality is amazing, and I'm so glad it came in my Beautylish Lucky Bag. At number 13, it's the first time you're gonna see Sydney Grace pop-up. There's a lot of Sydney Grace. But at number 13, this is the Chase Your Dreams palette. And I think the reason that this one is the lowest ranked, the quality is amazing. I really like it. I tend not to really like kind of a sunset or a sunrise eye color scheme. And I've done it and it's pretty, but it's not my preference. So this is one that I got when I made a certain dollar amount of purchase during their Christmas and July sale. They sent this out for free. So I like it because it has really nice cardboard packaging. It has a mirror in there, but I know I could, oh, there's a cat hair. It does not come with cat hair. It's crazy of my own kitty. I could, like use more of these shades here and not go for this bright purple or go for this kind of more intense gold. Those are the shades that kind of really take me into the, uncomfortable territory. But I love the formulation of these. I think they're really, really beautiful. And I did use it, just not as much as everything else. So at number 12 is the last of my e.l.f. Bite Size. This is the one in Pumpkin Pie. This is the one that kind of surprised me. Because remember how I said that I'm not really a warm neutrals, terracotta, okay, except for this. This right here, I don't know what it is. I feel like you do get some, browns, a little bit of coppery situation going on here, and it doesn't lean so terracotta pumpkiny orange. It has a really nice, I get a gorgeous kind of smoky, warm eye from this. I love this because even like the mattes, they're pretty dark on my skin tone. So it can really get a lot darker on my fair skin than it might for somebody else who has a slightly deeper skin tone. But I love this. And I do really think that this isn't just, again, good for $3. It's just plain good. And out of all three that I have, this is the one that I use the most. This is the one that I like the most. And I recommend. At number 11 is this Makeup Geek palette. This is the Mini Passion palette. I was surprised at how good these still are. And here's the thing. I feel like Makeup Geek kind of got forgotten. Not that they ever stopped being good, not that they ever stopped being like amazing quality. It's just that other shinier things came out, and those of us who, use shadow singles kind of forgot about Makeup Geek. But they reformulated, they repackaged, they kind of revamped the whole brand in the beginning of this year. And when they launched these, I think we saw the reveal like tail end of 2019. When these guys launched, I was so excited. And I wanted to get like one of the giant matrices, and I was like, don't do that, you'll never use all of them. Buy something you'll use. So I got this. This is one of their pre-made quads. This is like only $15. And the palette is magnetic, so you can put anything you want in here. But I like that these little pans are now square. There are times that I will use just these two shades and do a really pretty soft kind of smoky kind of rose look. I love it. Or times that I will just use like these two guys here and do a look. I do frequently use them all together. I think the quality is great. I like the little palette, that it's got a clear top so I can see what it is, and that there's only 4 shades. I love that so much. At number 10, I have 5 shadow singles from Sydney Grace. They're in here with a few other things, but it's these top 5 here. And these were all the singles that came in their mystery bag during their Christmas and July sale, which was another freebie if you purchased a certain amount of makeup from them. All right, so these 3 at the bottom are ones that just don't fit in my other palette. Got a lot of Sydney Grace. But these up here, I just didn't use them as much. Are they great? Yes. Are they beautiful? Uh-huh. And this one here is really pretty because it has kind of like a, let me see if I can get it to focus for you. There you go. Kind of like an olivey green, but it looks, I don't know, it's interesting. It's such a beautiful, sometimes it looks old gold, sometimes it has more of an olive lean to it, but these top 5 here are all peach themed with names like Picking Peaches, Blushing Peach. This kind of greeny one here is called Peach Harvest. There's a lot of really beautiful and fun shades. I just didn't reach for them as much as other ones, and I think it's because they're in a separate palette, and I wanted to keep them together because I wanted to make sure I was always using these guys together to form a real opinion, and then I kind of forgot about them. But they're really good. Number 9, I forgot about until I was digging through my drawers, and I'm so sad because I loved this palette so much when I first got it. It's the Too Faced Natural Nudes. All right, so this was one of the first, I think this was the second palette. This is my February palette. This launched, I don't know if it launched the tail end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020, but I didn't instantly get it. I'm like, do you really want it? Do you really want it? Do you really want it? And yeah, I really wanted it. And what I like about this palette is that I feel like it, instead of being kind of like a warm neutral or a cool neutral, it seems more in the neutral. And then you do have kind of more like blush tones in here. You do have like more of these like coppery warm tones, but it's these blush tones that really pulled me in. I did have kind of like a bone to pick with this palette, and it was these two lightest metallic shades here. So these two metallic shades are the lightest in this palette, and the problem I had with these, although they look beautiful in the pan, the minute you put your finger in them or use a brush and you start pressing them on or brushing them on, they're real flaky. I don't know if you can even see, there's a lot of like flakes, if I can get it to focus, on my fingertips. I feel like the formula is different of these lighter two to the rest of them. What I loved about this is that the mattes are the larger pans, because I do feel like a lot of people are going to be using those mattes a lot. I found that the ones that I used the most were these two, and then oddly enough, these two kind of more pinky ones. I did really love this palette, and this was one of those that kind of makes me feel bad because I was using it a lot. I almost use it every day for a month, and then I fell off the eyeshadow wagon. I just fell off the wagon. Quarantine loneliness hit me hard in late April, early May. And then I was just like, why bother? And then when I started wearing a lot of eyeshadow again in the early to mid-summer, I'd already put this in a drawer and I forgot about it. And when I was rifling through it, I was like, I remember you. You were so good. So it's gonna live like right here on my makeup desk, so I don't forget about it, because I really did like this, and I think you get some really beautiful looks out of it. Number 8 is my magnetic palette full of the Sydney Grace singles I bought during the Christmas and July sale. So every single shade you see here is from Sydney Grace, and with rare exception, every one is one that I picked up during the sale. I think I might have had like 5 or 6 from last year's sale, but these are so good. I love that I got some purples. I love that I got kind of some greens. I love that I have some really easy to use neutrals that'll go with anything, but my favorite thing about this are some of these kind of more interesting pressed pigments. Seriously beautiful. These are the reason that I love Sydney Grace. Now, their mattes are impeccable. They're, they have really nice satins and metallics, but it's these pressed pigments. I mean, oh, it's like I wanna, they're so beautiful. They're so delicious. And I really feel like they take my eye look up to the next level. And that's what I love so much about this, which is why I gave myself permission to get singles, because one of the things I told myself was you're not buying any more shadow singles, which is why when I got that Makeup Geek, I got the quad, the pre-made quad. I wasn't just gonna pick whatever. And I find that when I pick whatever, I don't use it. But I use these a lot, and I have a whole playlist of Sydney Grace eyeshadow looks. I will link it for you here if you wanna watch it. But I spent this summer after these guys came in building, like using 5 shades and building a look, choosing other 5s and building a look. I love these so much, and they have been a huge hit. And kind of at times when I feel like, oh, I don't want to do an eye look, and I go, ooh, but I could use my Sydney Grace singles. And then I'm just kind of like, ding, ready to go. So at number 7 is my Wayne Goss Imperial Topaz palette. Oh, this luxury eyeshadow palette is so good. I love the detail of this little plastic trim around the edge. It makes the mirror look like it's beveled, even though it's not. I used this shade here for such a long time. I would just take like my Wayne Goss airbrush, and these pans are big enough that you can just stick whatever you want in there, and I would just use it as highlight. I use it on the eye, but I'd also use it on my face wherever I wanted. I love that about this. I also think that this kind of celestial shade is really pretty. It's a really gorgeous kind of super sparkly topper, and the black isn't too intense. I have left so many blacks in palettes kind of untouched because they're so pigmented, like Makeup Geek Corrupt, like as black. And what I want is something soft to diffuse, and that's what you get here. I did love this, and I have used it so much since it came. It's so good. Number 6 on my eyeshadow list is not a palette. It's this. This is probably the one thing that surprised me the most this year. This is the Scattered Light Shadow from Hourglass. This is the shade Reflect. It has a real huge little divot in it. I dip my finger in this all the time. I do keep this little kind of, I don't know if it's to kind of keep it all in there, to kind of keep it moist. I don't know. This is, to me, a super miraculous, I love this so much. And this came in a BoxyCharm, and I never expected to get something this lovely and elegant in a BoxyCharm. It's beautiful. I tap this over, like I'll use the Wayne Goss palette, and I'll tap a little bit of this over the top. I'll use another palette like the one from Too Faced, and I'll tap a little bit of this over the top. I'll use any of my favorite palettes. I did a look the other day where I used just this. So good. I love this, and I'm surprised at how much I've used it. I use it constantly, so much so that I leave it like right here on the table so it's always within reach. And this shade is like the perfect shade for me. It's not too dark, it's not too light, and the formula is lovely. I would be interested in buying more of these. I know they're in the mid-20 range. It's kind of expensive for a single eyeshadow, but it's really good. We're in the top 5. Every palette here, I would say if we're like from 15 on down to 1, are all good and I reach for. But these top 5 are the ones that I have been in love with. Number 5, ooh, Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson. I love this palette. This Tiny Marvels palette is just beautiful. When I first saw like promo photos of this, I was like, because it had like purples and the greens and that bright yellowy gold. I was like, am I really gonna use that? And yes, I have. I love this green shade here called Mantis. It's really pretty. I really also love Jewel Bee. These are 2 shades that I love to do. This came kind of, I think September-ish, late August, early September. So it was still warm enough and I was still kind of doing pastel eye looks. Beautiful with that. If you want a real natural look, I love Tree Hopper and Walk-In Stick and Death Moth, but my favorite shades in here, again, are the pressed pigments. So shades like Marvel and Meadowlark, these kind of more peachy metallics, weak in the knees, and they are just so beautiful. Love them so much. I do also, like, once it started getting a little cooler, I was living more kind of in this cooler section with the more plummy mauvey tones. I have used this so much, and because it has my favorite formula, I couldn't believe how much I was continuing to reach for this. Number 4, Sydney Grace Summer Days. This was another free palette. So I got the group of 5 peach singles in their mystery bag as a freebie. I got the Chase Your Dreams and this Summer Days palette. I love it so much. Now you will see it's kind of a mess. These bottom 2 pressed pigments are really soft. Mine came shattered, so they sent me 2 more just singles, because this is a pan that if you were to take these guys out, there's a magnet at the bottom. So I was able to swap out just these 2 guys, and instead of sending me a whole new palette, they just sent me the 2 ones that I needed. And I like that about it. Again, it has the nice mirror, but what I'll tell you is, because this is that neutral, and it tends to go, it's not too pumpkin-y orange, you tend to get more kind of like almost a plum tone in here, kind of like some kind of pinky leaning nudes. I have used this palette so much, and it's these guys here. Oh, let me get them in focus for you. They're just amazing. Imagine those guys swiped on your eye. So I have used this so much. Super huge favorite. I'm just covered in swatches. My fingers are sparkly. I have to be careful what I touch. Down to the last 3. Number 3 is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, if you were curious. And these are a really late addition to my eyeshadow, and I bought both of these in the same month, so that was me breaking my rule of buying more than one palette a month. I did that during the Sydney Grace sale, and I did that also when I bought those two e.l.f. palettes in the fall. All right, but these are the Petitfour palettes from Viseart. I love that there's 4 shades in here, and I get a really lovely look. This is the Lilas palette. Lilas is French for lilac, and I like that you have kind of like these smoky, cooler, but it's not so cool, and the shades are really light. Now, I don't think this is going to work for people who, if you're fair to light, this will work for you. Once we start getting into medium skin tone, I think only these 2 more metallic-y looking shades are going to work for you, and they're beautiful, but are you really going to want to pay $22 for this guy and only be able to use half? I don't know, maybe you do. Somebody mentioned that in the comment, like, I don't care. For those 2 shades, I would do it. They're really beautiful. I love them so much. I'm using all 4 shades in my look today. They're so gorgeous. I like how tiny they are. I love this little packaging, and I love that it's just like super easy. So they arrived in November, and I've been in love with them and been using them nonstop since they got here. Number 2 is the other one. This is the Praline. And I couldn't decide, because when I did this, I looked just like, ooh, I like this one so much. And I remember that I think I might have used this one just a little bit more, but they're kind of neck and neck. Do I like the Lilas? Do I like the Praline? Do I like the Lilas? Do I like the Praline? They're really beautiful. This one here has a satin shade, 2 more metallic-y foiled shades, and 1 matte. So this one, you get 2 mattes and 2 foiled. The makeup is a little bit different of these. You don't get like, each one doesn't have like 2 mattes and 2 foils. They're different. I don't have the Framboise, and I don't have the Chocolat. I think those are the other 2, because I felt like the Chocolat would be too dark for me. And the Framboise leans a little pink, and I don't really prefer pink eyeshadow. But this, I love this because it's more neutral and not a warm or a cool. It kind of is like walks the line right down the middle. And oh, may they all still be alive and in one piece. Oh, my Weight Loss palette. Okay, and everything else that fell was not eyeshadow. So I was telling you about this little guy here, the most beautiful champagne shade. So pretty, so pretty. So I love these. I think they're really worth it. I would love to see them develop more than just the 4 they have, because being that they're small palettes, being that they're $22, I think it's a really, really great price for Viseart quality. My number 1 palette for 2020, oddly enough, is the one that I have used the most, the one that I have the best memories of, and the one that I bought in January. This was my palette of the month for January, and it's Sydney Grace Enduring Love. I love everything about this palette. Now, I will tell you, there are a few shades in here that I don't use all the time. I don't use this blue shade Deanna all the time, and I don't use this shade here, Elizabeth, all the time. I use a lot of the rest of them on the regular. My favorite is this shade Devotion, and this one called Romeo. Now, I have the light variation. They do have a dark. They have the Enduring Love Light and Enduring Love Dark. And I think the reason, I probably like the dark one too. A lot of the shades are the same. I'm running out of spaces to swatch, so we're going for the palm right now. But these are really beautiful. This is one that I love so much. This one's called Deanna. They're just beautiful. And I love that this kind of walks kind of like that cool eyeshadow tone. You get a lot of cool, like the metallics in here are just stunning. But what I have been super impressed with have been the mattes. I use this shade here, this shade, and this shade incessantly. So I'll use the mattes. I'll do kind of a little bit darker on the outside, and then I'll use one of these like really like shiny shades on the lid, and I can do a 3 shadow look with this in no time flat. It lasts all day. I don't get a lot of fallout when I'm placing even these more kind of metallic-y shades. That's what I love about Sydney Grace. They're just so good. Now, I have used these more than more expensive shadows in my collection. I have used these more than I've used like my Pat McGrath. I have used these more than I've used my Charlotte Tilbury. I have used these more than I've used my Natasha Denona. Now, those are all really great formulas, but these are the ones that I keep coming back to, the ones that I am so absolutely enamored with. And this is still like probably one of my all-time favorite eyeshadow palettes. I didn't think I would end up with 20 eyeshadow palettes. I guess one of them was not a palette. It was just a single. I didn't expect to end up with this many for the year. I was thinking I'd only get 12, but I did break my rule and a couple times buy 2 palettes or 3 palettes. And other ones you like gift with purchase when you make it. So I did kind of overspend, but there were some months I didn't buy anything at all. And I am gonna try and, because if I only ended up with 20 new eyeshadow products for the year 2020, I would normally have twice this much. If not twice and a half this much. And then I would declutter half of it. So I'm trying to be more focused. I think there's a good chance that some of the stuff from BoxyCharm's not gonna last forever, but I've been pretty impressed with all of my purchases, and I could definitely see myself continuing to use these. Let me know in the comments down below what eyeshadow palette you reach for constantly. Maybe you decided you don't need a whole palette, you just have a couple of singles that you love so much. It doesn't have to be anything I mentioned here, it could be anything at all. I would love to know. And if you have a formula that you live and breathe for, please, please, please share below. Thank you so much for watching. Have an incredible day. I will see you again soon. Bye.